I went to the National History Museum in Stockholm, and there I attended an exhibition. The Medieval Massacre! It was all about the Battle of Gotland, which confused me a little bit because I wasn't very familiar with the Battle of Gotland, but I did know about the Battle of Visby of 1361, and it turns out that for some reason they call the Battle of Visby the Battle of Gotland. Visby is a town on the island of Gotland, which is today a part of Sweden, and in 1361 the King of Denmark, Valdemar IV, invaded, and it is generally described as something of a one-sided slaughter. And on one side you have a professional army, lots of well-equipped mercenaries and so forth. And on the other side you have what are usually described as peasants and farmers and so forth, who had for a while been rebelling against the merchants of the Hanseatic League, who were in Visby and who, according to some versions of events, actually shut them out of the town, didn't let them in the town and just watched from the battlements, watched them get slaughtered by this considerably superior army. Oh dear. The merchants inside the town of Visby were paying 1/5 as much tax as the farmers living outside the town, so the farmers did have something to rebel about. Now, why is this battle so important? It's important because of the excavations that took place between 1929 and 30. It's a great shame that it wasn't excavated more recently because our archaeological techniques today are so much better. Although I dare say that when it was being excavated, the people then were saying, oh, thank goodness this is a modern excavation. Can you imagine what a mess they'd have made of it 50 years ago? But hey-ho. So we have lost, unfortunately, a lot of evidence to rather antiquated excavation techniques. But it is extraordinary because we have bodies and all the stuff that was with them immediately after a battle, because the guys who were on the losing end and died all got just thrown into a few mass graves. Why was this? We don't know, but the front-running theory is that it was a hot period of weather and the bodies decomposed something horrendous, and people couldn't even bring themselves to salvage the scrap iron worth of the armour on them, and they just picked the guys up and just rolled them into a ditch holding their noses. It was that bad. That the bodies were not very thoroughly searched is evidenced, for instance, by this pouch of coins that was found on one of them. Now you would think, wouldn't you, that as you rolled them into the ditch you would have heard a chink 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 noise from all the coins, and someone would have said, oh, that one had a load of coins on him. And then perhaps someone else said, yeah, do you want to go into the pit after it and dig it out? Be my guest. And okay, fair enough, let's just leave the coins where they are. And it's interesting because we get to see an awful lot of stuff. We get to see what people were wearing in those days. Very few weapons were found. You can imagine that a weapon on the dead man would be dropped a lot of the time, so you could just pick those up and salvage those more easily. But armour, a lot of the armour was just left on the bodies. And it's interesting, this armour, for lots of reasons. The labelling in the museum referred to it as lamellar. No, I wouldn't call this lamellar. I would say that this is brigandine. It's lots of plates. They are, if you like, the centre of a sandwich. So you've got an outer layer of leather or canvas or some stout material, and an inner layer, and a rivet going through. And in between these plates, the rivet goes through the plates and holds it to the outer layers, but the rivets do not hold the plates to each other, so there's a certain amount of lateral flexibility. Although this is not very flexible armour. It's a cheap way of producing plate armour. Interestingly, you look at these and they're not very pretty. They're no two exactly the same. Some of them I felt looked quite Bronze Age, and as I say, they're primitive and ugly. And look at these sabatons. Now, yes, sabatons. We're used to seeing in museums beautiful works of art, like this, for instance. And we think, oh wow, look at the craftsmanship back in those days. And yet, let's look at those sabatons again. It's just a few flat plates shoved on the top of someone's shoe. Now, it could be that we're missing an awful lot of this stuff from museums. You see, if you craft a spectacularly wonderful suit of armour, is anyone going to just, oh, we could reuse that for horseshoes. Bang, 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 there you go, horseshoe. I imagine that a blacksmith would sooner burst into tears than destroy a work of art such as these etched, fluted masterpieces that end up in museums. But imagine that someone has just, look, be honest, I just want to stay alive. You get a load of plates and stick them on me, and you end up with armour like this. Well, perhaps this is the stuff that did end up getting recycled into horseshoes, and that's why we don't see it in museums. So perhaps This is a rare glimpse of some of the lower status armour that was being worn, and it is valuable for that purpose. Certainly an awful lot of well-armoured men died, so armour on its own won't keep you alive. And some of the men on the losing side were decently armoured. Of course, we can't say for certain which of the bodies was on which side. They just all got rolled into the ditch. Now, I have to say, I did get a bit annoyed by the lack of labels in this exhibition. A lot of things weren't labelled at all. Some of the labelling was, I thought, rather inaccurate. It was as though the curators of it consider themselves curating an art installation rather than anything designed to convey information to the public. I would extend this criticism to the entire museum, in fact. None of the cabinets had any information in them. You had to really go searching for information on little bits of paper some distance away, and even then you tended to get just one word or something. Helmet. Great. Oh yeah, do you know what? I guessed it was a helmet. I want to know a bit more than that. How old is it? Where was it made? Where was it found? How much does it weigh even? Give me some information. If I don't want the information, I don't have to read it.
One frustration was that they said nothing about how this armour was worn. So, for instance, were these coats of plates, these brigandines, worn over the top of a full male hauberk? They would know this, surely, when it came out of the ground. The skeletons would have been wearing both kinds of armour, but we're just not shown this.
Oh, it is really heavy. Oh, but it is beige.
At least some of this armour, these coats of plates, these brigandines, would have been worn over the top of mail, it seems. This is transitional period armour. It's between the mail of earlier periods and the full plate of the later periods. Whereas many people would have you believe that it takes metal to be strong enough to be the nut of the mechanism of a crossbow, this nut is made out of bone.
Lindybeige!